Isn't it amazing? If it snows hard, it's global warming. If it's warm, it's global warming. If it's freezing cold, it's warm. If there's hurricanes, it's global warming. If there are no hurricanes, it's global warming. I was, introduced to this concept today by our producer. And we understand this must be an effect of global warming because there's a huge winter storm getting the country. It even knocked a golf tournament out in Arizona, which is unprecedented. And this particular storm is stirring around in the heartland of America, Kansas, Nebraska, places like that. 20 states are under winter storm watches or warnings.
Well, the system is bringing more snow, more ice, even tornadoes in some places. And as Pat just said, some scientists say global warming is behind these winter storms. Here's Ephraim Graham.
Residents of the central U.S. are stocking up on last-minute supplies today, bracing for up to a foot of snow.
Yeah, everybody's getting ready for the storm, and the lines are pretty long.
The massive snowstorm started in California. A mix of rain, snow, and wind, making driving conditions dangerous.
I was trying to go down the street from my house, and I started to go sideways down the hill.
After we got hit here, we hit a car, then actually at least 7-8 cars hit us.
Officials in the Midwest fear this could be the worst storm in the nation's heartland in 2 years. Further to the south, severe weather is also possible. Forecasters predict tornadoes today across Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. It is the second major storm to hit this winter. But global warming advocates say the huge amounts of snow actually prove the Earth is heating up. A new study from Princeton predicts global snowfall will shrink more than a foot over the next 50 years. But when it does snow, watch out.
Every once in a while, there's going to be a big storm, a kind of knockout punch.
Climatologists claim this is because a warmer atmosphere can hold the moisture. They predict most of that will come down as rain. But when it gets cold enough, it will turn into monster snowstorms.
So get out your snow shovels. Snowstorms with 2 or 3 feet that used to seem highly unusual, that may in fact become more typical.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
Only in Princeton would people say nutty things like that. You know, they get to be PhDs and they wonder where they studied and learned all these things. But I tell you, if you're a true believer, bad things will happen because you see them coming. But I'll tell you something that is really much more serious than global warming. They found a spot, a sunspot, 6 times the size of Earth. And if it erupts and there's a solar flare that could be on the way as we speak, we're talking about major damage to communication systems and the control mechanisms to our power grid, et cetera, et cetera. We're not quite sure how extensive it may be, but these serious problems are from people here on the Earth who have in the range of this solar storm. And George Thomas has that story from the CBN newsroom. Here's George.
Yeah, Pat, some crazy stuff. Scientists are monitoring a spot on the Earth's sun, as you mentioned. Get this, large enough to swallow 6 Earths. Space.com reports that NASA cameras captured the sunspot as it grew to massive proportions over the last 2 days. By the way, sunspots form as magnetic shields shift on the surface of the Earth. They have the potential for throwing off bursts of radiation in the form of solar flares. The sun is expected to reach the peak of its solar weather cycle this year, and some solar flares could possibly disrupt spacecraft, satellites, GPS, airflight planes, and power grids when they collide with the Earth's gravity field. Dr. Avi Schuner told CBN News the impact, well, could be catastrophic.
Without the electric grid, well, of course, there's no power. There's also no water. There's also no communications, no transportation, no medical care. The financial system would be down. The environmental effects would be catastrophic at a level that we've never seen before.
Yabba dabba do. Well, scientists monitoring the sunspot say it has the potential to throw off flares large enough to cause a solar storm. Pat?
Well, this is the real thing, folks. This is the real goods. And It's just a question of when something like this hits, it's going to hit. These solar flares are coming out all the time, but this is the maximum intense period for it. So I don't like to be an alarmist, but this could be. And by the way, this whole global warming thing, you know, it's hotter on Mars. And they don't have SUVs on Mars. Why is it hotter on Mars? Why? Because the sun is sending out more radiation, and therefore the solar system is heating up, and we're part of the solar system. We revolve around the sun. But if these solar flares start, the radiation that comes out of them, this is serious business. George, what's next?
Pat, the Obama administration is thinking about asking the Supreme Court to overturn California's ban on gay marriage. Proposition 8 is the voter-approved measure banning same-sex marriage in that state. President Obama raised expectations for gay marriage supporters in his inaugural address last month. He stated that gays and lesbians must be treated like anyone else under the law. The administration has 1 week to file a friend of the court brief. Overseas tension is rising between Egypt's powerful military and the country's Islamist government and its president. The military has even dropped hints it might seize power again. Since Mohamed Morsi took office, the military has made it clear that it will step in if Egypt is heading towards another political crisis, and several times has openly defied orders from the country's president. Well, the latest friction comes after rumors that President Morsi had plans to replace his defense minister because he was resisting bringing the military under the power of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Brotherhood denies those claims, and Morsi's office issued a statement reassuring military commanders of his appreciation. Pat, we are going to see this tug of war between the Islamists and the powerful military apparatus that has become known in Egypt these days.
Well, George, I really hope the military, in so many of these countries, the military has been a force of stability and actually democracy. You'd think the military would be pro-dictator, but in a sense, they're not necessarily, and I think the Muslim Brotherhood is a great danger. So I cheer on the military in Egypt. Well, you've got a story now as we switch to Israel. Tell us about it.
That's right, Pat. Florida's conservative Republican Senator Marco Rubio says Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. The fate of Jerusalem is one of the most divisive issues in the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. The Obama White House, like previous administrations, has refused to acknowledge Jerusalem as Israel's capital. But in his first official visit to Israel, Rubio met with Israel's prime minister and president in the holy city, and he stated that he believes Jerusalem belongs to Israel.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here in this city, which is, of course, the capital of your country, but the spiritual capital of millions of people around the world.
Rubio reiterated America's bipartisan support for Israel. Well, after 4 years in office, President Obama will make his first visit to Israel next month. The president's visit comes at an important time in the relationship between our two countries. Chris Mitchell has that story from Jerusalem.
The president's visit will be a busy one, given the number of threats and concerns facing Israel.
The three things that both the White House and the Prime Minister's office are stressing before the visit is, number one, Iran, number two, Syria, number three, the Palestinians. I think another issue that's going to come up is obviously Egypt, which is a huge topic right now and a huge concern. I think they're also going to talk about, Jordan and also other regional developments.
During Obama's first term, his relationship with Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu hit a number of bumps in the road.
It's been a rocky road, both with the Prime Minister and with the Israeli public. I think that in the very beginning, when Obama came out and called for a blanket settlement freeze everywhere, including in Jerusalem, while at the same time not making similar demands on the Palestinians, I think that was seen by many Israelis as an unreasonable demand.
I hope he's coming to warm up the relationship that I think by anybody's estimation has been a bit chilly, unnecessarily.
Former Governor Mike Huckabee told CBN News he hopes Obama does more than just make up with America's longtime ally.
What we need is a relationship that is red hot. It needs to be inseparable. We need to say to the rest of the world, people who believe in freedom and individual liberty, we stick together because we have so much in common.
Number one on that list is the common threat of a nuclear Iran. Huckabee also hopes Obama makes that the priority instead of pressuring Israel with the Palestinians.
I would hope he's not coming here to ask them to do something that they've been willing to do. The Israelis have been more than willing to come to the peace table talks, but they can't come if the Palestinians refuse to believe that the Israelis even have a right to exist.
Kanan says Israelis have been wary of Obama, but expects them to give him a second chance.
The Israeli public is not stupid, right? The Israeli public realizes that Israel has no better friend in the world than the United States of America. President Obama is the leader of the United States of America, so, you know, you're gonna make it work. It's important for it to work.
Obama will only have 3 days to make it work before he takes off for Jordan. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Pat, do you take any comfort knowing that our intelligence relationship between Israel and the United States is very strong today?
George, that's very encouraging. Not only the intelligence, but the military. They work hand in glove, and they're very close on a number of issues. But you know what I would think? It's a horrible thought, but keep your eyes open, ladies and gentlemen, that Obama's going to go and make some kind of a grandstanding speech. He might go down to the West Bank and stand up and cry out for the liberty of the oppressed Palestinians or something like that. You mark my word, I don't think it's all going to be sweetness and light. And behind the scenes, he's going to tell Netanyahu to cool it and not do anything against the Iranians, which would really be devastating. Now, maybe not, but keep your eyes open. George?
Pat, the head of a U.S. tire company says he won't take over a plant in France because of its crazy unions. Maurice Taylor is the chief executive of Titan International, which makes tires for agricultural and other vehicles. France approached him some time ago about taking over a plant that Goodyear is closing. Well, he rejected the idea in no uncertain terms. Taylor gave his response in a letter to France's industry minister. The letter was published in a French business daily. How stupid do you think we are? Taylor asked. I have visited that factory a couple of times. The French workforce gets paid high wages, but only works for 3 hours. They get 1 hour for breaks and lunch. They talk for three and they work for 3. I told this to the French union workers to their faces. They told me, well, that's the French way. The France 24 news service reports that Taylor also said the French manufacturing sector is doomed unless it deals with its unions and fierce competition from Asia. France's industry ministry responded by calling Taylor's remarks extreme and insulting. Pat?
I think it's great. God bless you. I don't know who Taylor is. I'm not familiar with Titan Rubber Company, but man, he laid it on the line. Yeah. You don't talk that way in Europe to the French. You're very polite, you know, my distinguished colleague and all that stuff. He laid it on the line and told the truth. Man, worked for 3 hours, talked for 3.
What's going on economically, he won't have to defend those statements. We can just wait and see whether he's right or not.
Well, he is right. I mean, the productivity in France is appalling. I mean, France is a great country. It has a great history, but they're self-destructing, and you wonder what's going on. The amazing thing that the youth in France went on strike, and they had massive demonstrations. Why? Because the retirement age was being moved from, I don't know the exact number, but let's say from 57 to 59 or 60. I mean, it was a minor shift in what you do with somebody when he gets retirement age. And these teenagers and college students were demonstrating because they think that's so important. Dear me, where are they? George?
Pat, let me see if I can interest you in a new car. Well, a new self-driving car made its debut earlier this week in the Lone Star State. The Google Lexus Hybrid, seen right there, was unveiled at the Texas Transportation Forum in Austin. It has a spinning laser that maps out roads and identifies hazards like other cars, pedestrians, and street lights. The car then creates a 3D mapping system that it uses to guide itself. Technology like this is still in the research and development phase, but researchers hope that it could be on the road within the next 5 years. But hey, if those solar flares come, forget about these self-driving cars. Everything shuts down.
Back to horses, George. That's where we are. The solar flares will not affect the horse and buggy.
Identity theft is on the rise again. A study by Javelin Strategy and Research found over 12 million Americans were victimized last year alone. That translates into slightly more than 1 in 20 consumers. The increase is attributed to a jump in more serious forms of ID theft, like new account fraud. It's the second highest total since the Federal Trade Commission started keeping record. A record 13.9 million victims were set back in 2009. A closed abortion clinic in Birmingham, Alabama, has been denied their bid to reopen. The Life Legal Defense Foundation says the New Woman, All Women clinic stands accused of injuring patients and building code violations. That led to a 76-page deficiency report by the Alabama Department of Public Health. The clinic owner's license was revoked in May 2012. She then tried to transfer the clinic to a friend using several different methods. But the two failed to comply with requirements from the state, so Alabama is rejecting their attempt to reopen. Well, as always, you can get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.